Just give me one more minute and we'll begin. Thank you everybody for joining us today in our webinar that we like to host second Tuesday of every month, in which we'll be covering grounds in regards of starting with EAGLE for the first time. Now, the nice thing of these meetings is that every time we have new tools that are implemented, I actually try to take them into consideration when we're working with EAGLE. So before I begin, those that have been with you in the past, been with us in the past, we greatly appreciate your attendance and joining us again. In addition to being listeners, many of you actually have contacted me via email and provided us some insight and some really good comments for us to actually make some modifications to our presentations to make them that much more informative. Remember, we collect all of these presentations and we put them on our YouTube channel. So in case you want to review any of the material that actually has been covered, please visit our YouTube channel, which is Autodesk EAGLE. Okay, thank you very much. Now, let's go ahead and begin. First of all, I just wanted to let you know you could visit our page, which is autodesk.com products EAGLE overview. And here you get some more information in regard to EAGLE. Also, you get the free downloads for those of you that have not downloaded EAGLE. We have it available for Macs, Linux, and Windows. Also, from here, you could actually get a subscription and actually acquire or purchase your subscription as well. Also, after we've covered all the material we plan to cover today, you could always go to our support learning portal, and right here on the Learning Center, we have a series of videos in which we actually break down every area of EAGLE. That way it makes a little bit more sense when you're working on the platforms, okay? And I'm constantly trying to modify and update these as every version comes along as well. Now, let's go ahead and start with our PowerPoint. So today we're going to be, it's about getting started with EAGLE. And my name is Edwin Robledo. I'm part of the Autodesk support team. Jorge and myself are here located in Pembroke Pines. We're approximately 20 minutes north of Miami and around 20 minutes west of Fort Lauderdale. We've been here in this office for approximately the last 4 years, approximately. I've had the opportunity to be working with EAGLE for a little over 20 years, and Jorge has been with us maybe a little over 10 years as well. So if you have any questions in regards of EAGLE, please let us know. We'll go ahead and address those immediately. Now, during the presentation, I prefer if you just go ahead and put your questions on the Q&A on the chat, and we will go ahead and address them at the end. That way we're able to cover all of the material that we aggressively want to cover today. Now, first of all, For those that are brand new to EAGLE, I'd like to explain a little bit, how does EAGLE work? How do we categorize it? EAGLE is basically a platform. It's a platform that consists of multiple workspaces, and they all work together, okay? So we have our schematic, which is a representation of the circuit board. It's like the blueprints of a building. It's the essence of the operation of how it's gonna operate, how it's going to function, how it's going to, here you select which components you're going to be using, and so forth. You create your bill of materials from the stage. Now from the schematic, you'll be moving on to the circuit board. Now the circuit board is going to be taking into consideration more the physical aspects of the circuit board. When I mean the physical aspects, distances, clearances, you may even take into thermal. You may take considerations such as thermals. If the components get too hot, heat sinks, how to keep other items away. And this way you'll be doing it from the circuit board area. You do not do that from the schematic editor. In addition to these two editors or workspaces, we also have a library editor. And here you're going to actually build components that you're going to be needing on your schematic, on your circuit board. Now, remember, we have around 500 libraries. Libraries consist between 10 components to a couple hundred components. So I would dare to say that we have way over 10,000 components in our libraries. Now there will be instances that you may just have to create your own. So we've actually made some really nice improvements to our library editor. That way you could build your parts really easily. Well, today we're going to go over a little bit on the control panel, in where you could, it's like the command center. From here, you could go into any area with an EAGLE. Then at this stage, we'll move into our board, into our schematic. Here we're going to create a brand new project, create a brand new sheet, and give you a brief explanation of the overall platform or the workspace icons and so forth. And then I'm going to actually stop the presentation at this point to go for the Q&A. But one thing that I always like to bring up is that one of the nicest features that EAGLE has is that between our schematic and our board, we actually have real-time synchronization. In other words, modifications that are performed to the schematic are actually taken into account immediately in real time to the circuit board. In this simple example, you'll notice that I actually delete some components from the schematic, and you'll see that the components are actually immediately removed from the board layout. Now let's go ahead and go live with EAGLE. When you launch EAGLE, this is the first screen that comes in, whether you have the Linux version, the Mac version, or the Windows version. It's the first screen that comes up. And I'm pretty sure that many of you learn about our webinars on our EAGLE control panel. You'll notice that we have two tabs. One tab is called Home. Here you're going to always get some information of when our up and coming webinars are coming up. So we actually keep the schedule pretty up to date. Also, you have access to our Learning Center, which I told you how to access it from our webpage as well. And we have a couple of videos regarding tips, as well as the latest updates that have on this latest version. In addition to this, you actually, on the left-hand side of the control panel, you have multiple, a list of the different areas of EAGLE. We have our libraries, we have our design blocks. I'll expand libraries really quick. And here are all the libraries folders that I'm actually using. The ones that you see that have the little, it's like a people type of drawing inside of them, those are referred as manage folders. Those are libraries that either I'm sharing or people are sharing with me, so we could actually access them. So here's one that we use often between the support team, and it's available to our users as well. And we just have a few components here that are some instances of some components that we actually have used in some projects. Now, the default libraries that are installed with EAGLE are these right here. So under Manage Libraries, we go to EAGLE PCB. These are the libraries that are actually are included in the first install of EAGLE. As you could see, it's quite a long list of components. If you expand any of these libraries, you'll get the component as well. If the component has an assigned 3D model, you actually will see it right here. Let me just grab a component that actually has a 3D model associated to it. That way you could see what I mean. Now, these libraries are actually in alphabetical order. As you can see, this is a RCL library, and the majority of a lot of these components are actually already have their 3D model associated to it. In addition to being able to take a look at the content of the libraries under the managed library, and this one, I have some other managed libraries that I actually have downloaded or put in use from the library manager. In addition to that, you can see all the design blocks that we've had that actually come with EAGLE. We have some of them contributed by Adafruit, Nordit, SparkFun, and some of the ones that we've actually made. These are sub-circuits that you could actually use as a standalone sub-circuit, or just add it if the functionality is necessary and you want to add this to your schematic. You could actually grab it as a design block, okay? Or you could create your own design blocks if necessary. Those are the main areas I actually wanted to review with you. There's many more, but I don't want to go into those. I'd like to go ahead and begin our project today. I'm going to expand the projects folder. I have our examples folder here. This is the one that actually has some design files that come with EAGLE that you could load just to preview them. You'll notice that the right-hand pane, as soon as I started selecting items or assets from the left-hand pane, the right-hand pane switched from the home view to the preview. Here I could actually take a look at my boards and my designs and decide if I actually want to double click them and work on those as well. Now, as well as the default libraries, as well as these example designs, you won't be able to edit them. You need to save them before you could actually edit them. They're in a read-only format. Now, let's go ahead and begin our own project. I'm going to go ahead and expand the projects folder that we have here, that everybody has one. I'm going to go ahead and right-click it. And I'm going to go ahead and select the option New Project. Okay. I'm going to call it Getting Started. And it's in November 2019. And you notice that the green dot actually becomes active right here. And before I continue going here, let me just go back to the libraries because there was something I needed to highlight before I actually move on to our board. In the libraries, if I expand the libraries, you notice that the libraries have a little gray dot here. I could click on that dot and it turns green. What that means is that if it's green, that means that that library will actually be available when I'm working on my schematic. If this dot actually is gray, it means that that library is not deleted, it's just not going to come up. And the only reason you want to do this is that you don't want to have to be shuffling through hundreds of libraries to find components. Even though we do have a search function in EAGLE, you don't want to have to going through all those libraries to take a look at them. So I actually put a lot of them in gray and only highlight the ones I actually going to be using in today's presentation. As you can see, this one's in green as well. When I created our brand new project, Getting Started on November 2019, you'll notice that it actually got this green dot. What this means is that this project is now going to be our active project. This is the project that every time I launch EAGLE, it's going to actually be looking at this project. So every time I start. Now, if I wanted to switch projects, no problem at all. I could go from here. I could select this one. And when I do, it now makes this one my active project. Or I could go here and select this one. And this one now becomes my active project. Okay. Now that we have our project created, I'm going to start a brand new schematic. I'm going to go ahead and right click and select New Schematic, because we usually will start any electronic consumer product design with a schematic. This will open up the schematic editor. The schematic editor, of course, it has its pull down menu, which has a lot of functions that you have access right here. I have it self-hiding just because I like to have more workspace. We have our toolbars on the top. You can see we have our zooming. We have our ULP icon, and this ULP is actually very, very useful. ULPs is an extension for our users or ourselves, create a lot more commands and extend the capabilities of EAGLE using a C-like language that does not have to be compiled. Script files are more or less the same, but it's a sequence of commands in which EAGLE can execute. Both of these files are ASCII files. If you want to learn more about ULPs or script files, just go ahead and email us. I could tell you a little bit more about those as well. In the second toolbar right here that you have, we have all of our SPICE tool simulation tools right here. We have our active layer, which is our net layer. I could, depending on what you're going to be working with, I could switch my layer. Okay, this is my selection filter, which is kind of right over here. I use the selection filter. We'll actually use this shortly. It just makes it easier for you to find components and make selection of components as well, which are already on your drawing. And then on the left-hand side, again, right here, we have our grid settings. Now, if there's anything at all that you want to learn from this webinar, is that when you're on a schematic, never ever change your grid. Okay, we actually even made it a highlight right there. We strongly recommend that if you're placing components on a schematic or you're defining connections on a schematic, please stay at a 0.1 inch grid. It's imperative that you stay on a 0.1 inch grid. If you don't, it's a good chance that when you move over to the board layout, there will be no connections. So it is imperative that you always work on a 0.1 inch grid, okay? Then we have our grid settings. If you're brand new to EAGLE, you may want to consider putting the pin, enabling the pins layer, but I won't do that now because I want you to actually see the difference when you do have it and when you don't have it. And then on the left-hand side, we have the rest of our toolbars right here. Okay, so we have our information, our show, our group command. As you could see, the group command, as soon as I stop any command, the group command is the one that actually becomes active. We have our move, our mirror command, rotation, copy, and so forth, as you could see. The tool help will let you know exactly what's going on. Now, the command that I'm going to be using the most today is called the add command. This is the command that is going to be utilized to actually go through the libraries and find the components that I'm going to be needing in our design. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the add command. And here you go. Now remember, we have a lot more libraries than this. I've only put these libraries in use. That way I don't have to be going through hundreds of libraries, okay? First thing I like to do is always add a frame. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna click on this little triangle here. I'm gonna expand this frame. Regardless of what operating system you prefer to use, this works exactly the same way. I like using the frame A, which is has the 8.5 by 11 inch size, which is our standard printing format here in the US, and it's landscape, so it gives me a lot more drawing area. And it has a really nice information box on the right-hand corner, which I could fill in using the text command. I'll go ahead and click OK. Now it's really important that you observe here that the handle of this frame is on the bottom left. Also, you'll notice that there's a crosshair marking on our workspace, on the schematic workspace. That's our 0, marker on our workspace of the schematic workspace. And how you could tell is right here on the top right left-hand corner, it's giving you the coordinates of where your mouse cursor is located. So as I move along, and I move there, you'll notice that I'm snapping at 0, 0. I want it there. And the main reason you actually want to work on the 0, 0 on the top right corner is because you want to do your best to always have positive coordinates when you're working on the schematic and on the circuit board. It actually has a very similar behavior. Now, let's go ahead and start adding components to our design. So we have to go back to the add command. One of the easiest ways to go back to the add command is just since we have the active add command active and we have a component attached to our mouse cursor, is just by pressing the escape button. Once we press the escape button, you'll notice that the add command just came back up. Now that I'm on the add command, I want to show you some additional features that we have in the add command. The add command, there's a button here that says open my library manager. Library manager is kind of taking into consideration all of my local libraries as well as the libraries that are available on the cloud on library.io. It's an extension to EAGLE on the cloud. I'm going to select Open Library Manager. Now, since I've only, in this design, I've only used the frames library, it's only showing me all the libraries that I currently have in my design. In this case, it's on the frame library. Here are all the libraries that I have in use. This is the next tab. These are all the libraries that I currently am using. I have in use, I have access to. Now, this is where I really wanted to bring this up, is the Available tab. On the Available tab, you'll see that we have a whole bunch of libraries here available. Okay, these are libraries which are contributed, are in contribution from our librarians, as well as distributors and manufacturers. You notice that we have, let me see. So we have SparkFun here that has included many libraries into EAGLE. And just to let you know, these are not libraries that we actually add. This is totally controlled by SparkFun. Okay, so SparkFun is the one actually managing these libraries. So they're constantly adding more parts to it or making modifications to it. We also have the company called PCB Layout. It's another outfit that's actually adding many components to EAGLE as well. And we have Worth Electronics, which is continuously updating their components as well as Adafruit. I think the Adafruit one does not show up here because I currently already have it in use. Now in the libraries, if you ever see a little, let me see if I see it, this little double circle arrow here, that means that that library has been updated. It's still on the cloud. It's apparently the last time I accessed it, it seems that since then there has been an update. I would be able to select that library and select the update here if I wanted to actually get the latest version of that library. Okay, if there's a library here that you're interested in using, the only thing you need to do is just select the library, and I'll just go ahead and select one from here, amplifiers, and I'll select the option use here. And now I'll exit this, and now that library is actually going to become part of my collection of libraries available to be used in my schematic, as you could see right here. Okay. Now, if you log into library.io, you could create what's called a managed folder, and you could invite other users to your managed folder. You won't be able to make that managed folder available to the public, but if within your school, if you're a professor, or within a company or a team, you could actually create a managed folder, invite all of those that you want access to your library. That way you're working from a centralized library system instead of having each one independent libraries in which you may be prone to error or version errors because you're using different libraries. Okay, now in the add dialog box, we do have a search function right here in the bottom left-hand corner. I'm going to go ahead and use it to find the component I wish to use. In this case, I want to use a 555 timer. So I'm just going to type 555 and hit enter. It's not able to find any of the parts because EAGLE finds that sequence exactly. It wants to find 3 5s in sequence with absolutely no characters in the front and no characters in the back. Okay, it works very different than what you're used to other search engines. So I'm actually going to use wildcards. I'm going to use the asterisk in the front and asterisk in the back. That way it searches for the 555 sequence. It doesn't care how many characters or what variables are in the front or in the back. In this case, I'd actually find it, and I want to actually use the one from the linear library. Now you notice that it actually found the schematic symbol, but there's an arrow here. Let's go ahead and expand that arrow. It appears that this particular component actually has multiple footprint variants available. In this instance, I have the SO8 package, or footprint, I should say. I shouldn't be using the word package. Or I could use the DIL08, which is the through-hole one. For our example, I'm going to actually use the through-hole one. And I'm going to go ahead and click OK. You'll notice that it appears attached to my mouse cursor. I'm going to pan my screen a little bit. And just to let you know, I'm panning the screen by I'm doing a click and hold of my middle mouse button. I'm using a PC-based mouse button, therefore I'm pressing and holding the scroll wheel. Okay, I'm just going to place this on the center here. I'm going to place it on the center because it's kind of like everything is going to come out of this one component. I'm going to do a zoom to fit. That way we're just working a little closer. Now, I actually am going to delete this one because I wanted to show you some more functions that you could do with your mouse. And besides panning, I'm going to use the right mouse key. I'm going to rotate the component using the right mouse key 90 degrees twice. So once is 90 degrees, one more time is another 90 degrees. Okay. Now I'm gonna do a single click on my middle mouse button, and you'll notice that it mirrored. Look at the little bubble there. You'll notice that if I do a single click on my middle mouse button, it actually mirrors the component, and that's actually the orientation I actually want to use. Okay. If I click on let me go ahead and delete this one over here because I don't need it. This is the actual orientation I wanted. Now, EAGLE does have a command line. I could either do the add command here, or I could just type the command here. I could type add there, and you'll notice we're back to the add dialog box. Now I'm going to start just collecting some more of the components that I wish to use. I'm going to erase or reset my search options. Actually, I'm going to look for a battery. The 9-volt battery. It should be located in our battery library. Let's see if maybe I don't have that library. Yep, I do have that library. We do have that library. No, that's not the one I wanted to use. Here it is. Nope, that's not the library I want to use. Here it is. This is the library I want to use. Okay, so 9-volt battery. Now I'm going to go ahead and click OK. This is my source. Put it off to the side here really quick. Left click to place it. Now I'm going to hit escape and start selecting the other components I wish to use. I'm going to go ahead and speed up a little bit here now because it's just going to be the same sequence all over and over again. So let me just go over here really quick. Now in our case, now I'm going to be using some discrete elements, and I'm going to be using the RCO library. The resistor library, there's actually two of them, using US style symbols, and there's another one using European style symbols. So depending on which you prefer, in essence, the content is exactly the same. It's just the shape that's being used. So it's just a matter of what preference you want to use. Okay. So I'm going to use some 1206 resistors, and I actually need 4 of them right now. So let me just go ahead and place them. Let's place, I think, one there, one there, one here, and one here. I only need 4 of them. Then I'm going to hit escape again, and let me grab a capacitor that I'm actually going to be needing. So I'm going to go to the capacitor library, CUS, and I'll select and remember, the selection is going to be based on the body style of the component. When we're working on the schematic, we're not really working with values yet. So the descriptions that you see for those components is based on the body shape and their lead spacing. Okay, so as you can see, I selected any resistor. Doesn't really matter what it's going to do. You know how many the value in ohms that resistor is going to have. It doesn't really matter because I'm actually selecting the resistor based on its physical elements. Taking that decision at the schematic level. Can I switch that later? Absolutely, you can switch it. I just got to rotate my schematic, this component, just a couple of times, and left click to go ahead and place it. I actually only need 2 of these, so I'm just going to go ahead and place another one here as well. Kind of put it over here, slightly out of the way. And then last but not least, I need The LEDs, what we're designing here is just a little flash LED using the 555 timer. I'm using 2 LEDs. They're gonna, yes, kind of flash and sequence one behind each other. So I'm just gonna go find some LEDs. So I'm gonna go ahead and type, I need the 5mm style LEDs, the ones that look like a bulb. And so here on the LED, and here it is, 5mm LEDs right here. That's the style. Pretty sure many of you have done many projects with these already. So I just need to put 2 of these here as well. Okay, now when it comes to component placement, I think I'm almost pretty much done with all my component placement. Okay, now I want to get rid of this one on the schematic that I have attached to my mouse cursor. I could just go ahead and click here where it says stop, as you could see. That way now, and as soon as I hit stop, you notice that the group command actually becomes active. That's the default command. Let's say I wanted to actually move all these components or this row of components here. Let's say I want to move it. Since the group command became active, I could actually, yes, create a group right here and left click and hold on the origin of any one of the components that I select in my group, and you'll see that they move as a group, as you could see. Okay. Makes it a lot easier to navigate around that because I don't have to go to any other icon. So having the group command come on. Now let's say I want to break up the group. I just hit the escape button once. Let's say I only want to move one component. Even though the group command is active, if I click and hold on the origin of the component, that component will move. So you don't have to activate the move command. It will automatically activate for me. Now, let's start creating some connections on my schematic. Now, ground and V plus are always going to be the same. So I want to break these out really quick. I'm going to break out ground and V plus because the name of the connection of the net that is going to be used for ground is going to be ground and V plus. So I'm going to go ahead and look at this. I'm going to do a right click on the origin or the handle of the component, and I'm going to select the option breakout pins. But I only want to selected pins. I don't want to break them all out. I only want to break out selected pins. In my instance, I only want to break out V plus, and I actually want to break out ground only. Okay, and I only want it to have the name of the pin. So when it breaks that out, I only want it to have the name of the pin. I don't need it to add the part and the gate or nothing like that. I only want the pin name to show up. And now I'll go ahead and click OK. As you could see, it broke those out for me. Okay, I could have done the entire component, but in this instance, it's not worth it. I only needed those. Now let's go ahead and start adding some more connections to our design. Now, one nice thing I like to do is I like to take the positive side of our battery, and I'm going to take this connection. I'm going to navigate all the way to our LED over here, right here. Now, as you could see, when I get to a connecting point of a component, I notice that a bubble appears. Okay, that means that's the connecting point of that component. Don't continue going on because you'll miss that connecting point and the bubble will disappear. So make sure that you are connecting to the connecting point of that component right there. I'm going to left click to finish my connection. Now, if you're brand new to EAGLE, we usually like to recommend that you enable using the layer settings of the display command to go ahead and enable the layer called layer 93. You'll notice that you get a lot more information on each one of your pins. The benefit of this is that way you no longer will have to guess where's my connecting point. I'll go ahead and click on the net, the net command is still active. I'll keep on defining some more connections here. As you could see, making my connections makes it really easy because I actually know where the connecting point is at. Now, there's a lot of information here that kind of clutters the schematic, and that's why we usually have that layer actually disabled. I'm just going to go ahead and click on the layer settings icon here, and I'm going to disable layer 93. It's because it just adds too much information to my design. And I'm going to continue just adding some more connections to my design as well. So the net command remains active. I'm going to now run my connections between here as well as here, as well as here. I'm going to run my ground over here. Okay. Make our connections to ground here. Please notice that when I make this intersection, let me do it one more time. I'll undo this because I wanted you to see that really quick. As soon as I stop my net on another net, look right here. Let me zoom in really quick. As soon as I stop my net on this other net, you'll notice that the junction point automatically will show up. What this means is that this net has now adopted the same name as this net. That's all that means. So every time you see a junction point, that means that there's been an intersection. That way, the name of this net and this net actually name. And how could you verify that? I could click here where it says the show command. And if I highlight this net, my highlight color is not very bright. If I highlight this net, let me see my inspector, my selection filter. Yeah, I have everything selected. ¿Lo tengo que mirar? Oops, sorry about that, John. Thank you. Lo tengo al revés. Oh, sorry about that, John. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you, John. Got the best users. Okay, did I get it right this time? Okay, so let's go ahead and finish this. Oops. Okay, there we go. Okay, let's go ahead and continue doing the rest of our connections that we need to do here. Time my reset right here. My trigger. My discharge. My discharge. Please notice that here I do not have a junction point, and here I do have a junction point. So this clearly identifies that these three lines have the same name. These are two separate lines. Okay, so there's a bridge there. Make sure that you know that. Make that clear. My trigger. I'm doing this a little different than when we did it the last time we hosted this. Okay, so here we're gonna go. Let me see. I kind of painted myself into a corner here. So let me just move everything off to the side a little bit. So let me just activate the group command. That way I have some space there. Okay, I want to make some space there. Now, that one's already connected. Now CV. I'm just going to go to the cap. Now, I like using this this mouse cursor style, yes, because it's it's just easier for me to line up with my connections. That's the only reason why I like actually using this one as well. Trying to optimize this that way it comes out a little nicer there. Now I don't want to carry this whole ground to this ground all the way over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the add command and select the ground supply pin. So I'm going to go to the supply pin and I'm just going to go ahead and select the ground connection here. Now this ground is going to be the same as this ground. This supply pin actually has absolutely no contribution at all to the board layout, okay? This is only a representation. That way I could carry ground between one area of the schematic and to another area of the schematic, okay? That's all this is going to be doing, okay? Now I'm going to run my net. And run my net here. Okay. And I'm going to run my V plus to my connection right there. Now, since this was called $N$1 and this was a supply pin which was carrying V plus, it's asking me, do you want me to rename this whole network over here V plus? I'm going to go ahead and say yes, because I want this entire network to be whatever the name is over here. And you see that if I enable the pins layer, I think it actually does provide you the name here. Actually, it doesn't. Okay. Now this actually defined all my connections. Now let's go ahead and go back and start adding values to our components. How do you add the values? I'm going to go ahead and click here where it says the value right here. And I'm going to select my resistors. And here, I'm actually using 1K resistors right here. Here, I actually use a very large value resistor for actually 100K. Here, I'm going to, since I want the lights to blink at the same sequence as well as the same value, I'm going to give these exact same value. 230 and 300. Actually, I'm missing one connection here. I just realized I'm missing one connection here. It's the net. You didn't see that, huh, George? I was missing a connection here. And then let me just give some values to our capacitors. Oops, I hit name instead of value. No, no. I'll delete it. This is 1 microfarad. And this one is real small. It's a really big one. I don't have my glasses on. 10 nanofarads. What I would do is I'll make a duplicate of this. Sorry about that, guys. Yeah, I gotta rotate it. Yeah, I know. I observed that once you told me. There we go. Okay. Okay, and that I'm gonna turn off this one here. pins layer. That way it doesn't look so busy. Okay. Okay. That's correct. So I need to rotate the capacitors then. Oh, that's right. I'm using non-polarized capacitors, so it doesn't really matter. Okay, excellent. Well, this completes, I guess, the basic electronic lessons as well. As well as this is how far I wanted to reach with this. Today, I wanted to be able to show you how to select your components, a little bit how to navigate to the control panel, how to break out your pins from a component, and how to define your connections and how the junction points actually work, and how to carry a connection between two components. As you could see here, I'm only using the ground symbol, but this one actually is connected to this one here. So hopefully, let's make sure I got that right. I'm going to click on the name command and click right here. The name command became active, as you could see. I'm going to click here. And this needs to be GND. Okay, and this one is automatically called ground as well. Okay, so those two are actually totally connected now. And this one is V+, which is the expected connection that is expected here. This is as much as I wanted to cover for today. On Thursday, I'm going to move from the schematic, ask any questions if you had on the schematic level, and then I'll go ahead and move on to the board level. I'll go ahead and take some questions, open up the platform for any questions, or you're more than welcome to use the chat or the Q&A to ask any questions. Okay, so I see a question here, sir. Is there an optimization function for the schematic layouts? Not really, no. There's not really an optimization option. It kind of does it automatically while it works, but that's more of a function on the board layout more than the schematic editor. What was the reason behind breaking out the pins? It's a feature that EAGLE has in case you were having a component that has, let's say, hundreds of pins. Instead of having to break out each pin, especially for when you have designs that have multiple schematic sheets, you may want to break out the pins and only have the name of the pin. That way you could have that net name assigned on a different sheet. So if I have multiple schematic sheets, as long as the nets have the same name, they will appear, the component will appear connected on the board layout. It's just an aid for you to design a lot faster. That's basically what it is, especially for those large components when you want to break out all the pins. Okay, that's where that is. I hope that takes care of your question, Pep. Okay, now, okay. Yeah, I went ahead and I fixed that, Sana. Sorry about that. Apparently I didn't realize when I put the battery. I was going to use a different battery, which I actually usually use, but apparently I did not have that library available, so I used that one by mistake. So hope you don't mind. I went ahead and deleted it and turned it around the proper way. Is a frame necessary every time one designs on a schematic? No, it's not necessary, but it's recommended that you do. Now, if you have a schematic, if you're able to use a schematic that has multiple schematic sheets, you notice that the frame has a coordinate system here. As you can see, it goes A, B, C, D, and then it go 1, 2, 3. And this will grow depending of how many components you have. So as you make the frame larger, it'll make it larger. If you have multiple schematic sheets, EAGLE will be able to let you know by using the label function of EAGLE. It will let you know in which sheet that signal came from and which area it's located. So yes, it documents the schematic. That way you could see the transition of a signal from sheet to sheet. So it is a really good idea to always use a frame. I strongly recommend that you always use a frame. Oh, basically, is somebody's asking me about the capacitor. How did I grow? The capacitor is just basically from the RCL library. So if you go to the add command, if you go to the add command here, and it's basically from the RCL library. And in this instance, I'm just using, I think it's 0603 capacitors. Nice one here. And actually, I like using the Chemet ones, 0402s, because they're nice and big. So when you're doing hand soldering, they're just easier to use. So I just grabbed that one from there. Also, if you need to use more parts that are already on the schematic, you could always use the copy command and select that part, as you could see. And he selects it. That way you could just go ahead and use it somewhere else. Another tip that I would like to contribute to you is that, let's say, for example, I already have a net drawn, and I need to add a component to this net. Instead of having to break the net, the only thing you need to do is actually take the component and just line it up with the net. Once you do that, it will automatically connect it for you, as you could see. It actually puts the connection in for you. So it'll get rid of that segment, and it actually will split the segment. So this one will have a name and this one will have a different name. So if I was to use the show command here, this segment here is now called $1, as you could see down here. Or I'll just use the name command. That was easier for you to see. Okay, so I broke it up. So this one is called $1, and this most probably kept the name V+. You can see. So you don't have to be, you could actually draw the nets, and once you place the component, I'll do it one more time. That way you can see what I mean. I have that component there. I'm just gonna put it here. I'll put it there. And as you could see, it became a connection right there between those two. And it automatically breaks down the net as well. Okay. Hopefully I've answered all your questions. It appears to be that way. On Thursday, we're going to be covering more on this board layout side. So I'll answer any questions that you have. Make sure that you visit our website. And that way you always get the latest news about it, and visit our Learning Center. And don't forget to subscribe as well. If you're a student, of course, you could go ahead and download and register as a student as well. Okay. I don't see any other question, Jorge, right now. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining me. I greatly appreciate it. And see you on Thursday, in which we'll go ahead and do part 2. I'll go ahead and put my email address on the chat. That way, in case anybody has a question that doesn't really want to answer it here, you could contact us directly. Let me go ahead and find the chat, the menu. The menu switched on me. Our email address is support.eagle@autodesk.com. Also, you could join our forum, which is it's a very active forum. You're more than welcome to join us there and post any questions. Or if you want to actually help other users in the community and answer the way you actually work on your designs, you're more than welcome to participate in our forums as well. I'm just going to take a quick peek at our friends, our YouTube, because I had not been tracking our YouTube friends as well. There's a question regarding about converting Altium to Eagle. At this time, just to let you know, this is Tej. I'm hoping you're still online. Oh, wow, there's a big group on the YouTube page. I had not noticed that. Thank you, everybody, for joining us, and really appreciate it. It was great to have you here. Now, to convert over from Altium to Eagle, the designs itself, we don't really have the logistics to be able to convert the files. But if you visit library.io, I'll try to put it here. On library.io, we do have a method by which we can take the Altium libraries and we could actually convert them to Eagle. So let me show you right here. As you can see here, import library, we are able to take Altium Designer and Circuit Studio libraries in this format, or OrCAD libraries, and we're able to convert them to Eagle. At this time, we don't have the means of how to actually do the actual designs itself. just to let you know. Any other questions from our friends on YouTube? I don't see any other questions. Well, thank you everybody for joining us. Oh, somebody raised, I see a raised hand here, but, oh, he already asked a question. Okay, son, he already asked this question. Okay, cool. Okay, well, thank you everybody. Hopefully you are able to now comfortably use our EAGLE Schematic editor. And we want you, if you have any questions, go ahead and email me. And have a great day. And it was a pleasure. And make something that is going to make a difference to this world. Have a great day.
Bye, everyone.